So welcome, and in this video we're going to talk about line graphs. So what's a line graph? A line graph is a graph that involves a line or more than one line, okay? Sometimes in industry I call these spaghetti lines, especially if you have multiple lines on the same graph. But what is a line graph used for? Well, it's used to show changes in values, usually over time. So that's a specific type of line graph. But you can do the same thing for categories as well. So a line graph would be a way to show, again, like I said, changes in the value of a variable, right? So on the X and Y axes, again, so this is the Y axis and the X axis. So the X axis would be one variable, and the other axis would be another variable. So variable 1 and variable 2. Usually the x-axis is the independent variable versus the dependent variable. And of course, you need to have a title. And then so this shows how the value of one variable changes as the other variable changes. Okay, so now, a lot of times it could be the what was I going to say? A lot of times the x-axis is going to be time. Usually that's what we do. We call those time series graphs. So a lot of times this is going to be, hey, we want to see how something changes over time. Maybe it's the price of a particular line of apparel, right? Those have certain patterns to them. Or maybe it's the stock price of a particular company. Or maybe it's the temperature of over a time period, right? Maybe it's local temperature. Maybe it could be the height, right? Change in height of a person or a tree or some other object, or change in volume or anything like that over time. So lots of times time is going to be the x-axis. So usually this is going to be time, not always, but a lot of times it's going to be time. And then this is whatever we're measuring, right? Whatever the other variable is, whatever it is that we're measuring. And we want to see how it's changing over time, okay? And so again, make sure you have a title and you label the variables, and so depict your graph accurately. So we can use the graph to answer all sorts of questions, okay? So we can see trends, right? Is there an upward trend? What's going on? So again, line graphs are easy to glean information from. We could see, hey, are stock prices tending to go up? Is the Dow Jones, right? If we look at the industrial average, right? The Dow Jones industrial average over time, right? We could take that 100-year period and we could see, hey, has the stock market generally gone up? So on, okay? And in fact, we can get information, for example, interesting thing about the stock market. So I used to be in the financial services many years ago. One of the things that you can see is that there has never been a 15-year period in the stock market where you've lost money. So if you put $1 in the stock market, and you kept it in there, that's the key. If you keep it in there and don't take it out, then as long as you leave the money in the stock market, there's never been a 15-year period where you've lost money. Even if you take into consideration the Depression, right, from 1929 to 1939, right? We take that 10-year period of the Great Depression there as well, okay? And you take 15 years, there's never been a 15-year period that you've lost money in the stock market. And why do we know that? From looking at the trends of the data, okay? So one of the things that I learned by looking at the data is that, hey, as long as you keep your money in the stock market and don't let your emotions get involved when you see the stock market go up and down, then you'll be fine. Because the key is time in the market, not timing the market. Okay, but anyway, I digress. But that's one use of a line graph, right? So you can see trends in the performance of a stock or the Dow Jones Industrial Average or the any kind of index fund. So again, that's one of the things that we use in finances. Okay, so let's do an example. So let's use this chart here. Again, I'm not going to try to draw this chart out. Okay, but we could have this here. I'm going to show you. Okay, so let's say we have this chart here. Okay, and so what do we have? Let me back up a little bit. So what do we have here? We've got temperature, right? This is change in temperature over time. Okay, and this is by different dates, right? And you can see this is every 4 hours. Okay, over a 24-hour period. So you get 6 data points for each day over a 3-day period. And they're looking at temperature. So you can see on the x-axis, you've got time on the x-axis at the bottom. And along the y-axis, you've got temperature. And the temperature is measured in what degrees? Does it say? Fahrenheit. See at the bottom, see at the top? Okay. Okay, so that's the graph that we're going to use. And see how you've got the points? And so now here's the thing. They measure the temperature at discrete time periods, right? And so notice how they connect the dots with a straight line. Now, even though temperature is continuous, right, we don't know what the temperature is between the points. So we connect them with a straight line. Now again, we just don't know what the temperature was between those. So we connect them with a straight line, but we know that it's not going to be like a straight line in reality, right? It's going to be more of a curved line. But again, why are we doing this? More to show trends, right? Okay, so now let's answer some questions based on this graph. Okay, so the first question is, so the first question is, it says, on what date and time did the patient's temperature first drop? So this, so now we get more context. So this is a temperature. So this, so this is the temperature of the patient. So this is the body temperature of the patient after surgery. Okay, so this would be important, right? Infection, right? Post-op temperature. So if we look at this, so the first question is, what was the temperature of the patient, right? So it says, on what date and time of day did the patient's temperature first drop to within 0.2 degrees of normal, which is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so now here's the cool thing. Now on this one, they have a trend line, right? They have the line, right? Notice at the bottom there, they've got a blue line, and they've got a line that represents body temperature. So they've got a reference line there of 98.6. So we want to know, hey, what day and time did the patient's body temperature first go within 0.2 degrees of normal body temperature. Okay, and that would be which day? It would be 4 a.m. on what? 4/11, right? And then B says, on what post-op period of time did the patient's temperature remain within 0.2 degrees of normal? Okay, so here. So now they want to know what time period Okay, so let's read this graph a little more. Okay, so notice here, I'm going to make this bigger. Okay, so notice the tick marks, those little dots going vertical, up and down. So each one of those dots going up represent 0.2 degrees. So now it says, now notice that on the 10th, right? So let me go down a little bit. Or on the 11th, I'd rather say. So on 4/11, we notice that that's the first time, so at 4 a.m., that's the first time that the body temperature was within 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit of normal body temperature. And then you notice that it stays stable from that point forward. So for the next, so what time period did it stay within 0.2 degrees? Well, from 4 a.m. on the 11th through noon on the 12th. Okay, so for a total time period of what? So that'd be from 4 a.m. to 4 a.m. the next day. That's 24 hours. And then it was another 8 hours after that, right? So that'd be 32 hours, right? So a time period of 32 hours, the patient's body temperature was within 0.2 degrees of normal body temperature. Okay, so okay. And then of course, the highest body temperature recorded was at the very beginning at 102.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so there's an example of how we can use a line graph to answer questions. So again, what did we cover? We covered what graphs are used for. You know, why do we use graphs? Also, the types of graphs. We talked about circle graphs, or what we call pie charts, bar charts or bar graphs, and we now talked about line graphs. Okay, and so that's it. Okay, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.